I definitely appreciate the journey, the training, the camaraderie. Yeah, Birkie Day there's a lot of excitement and a lot of focus. It's a big deal, but the journey is a bigger thing for me now, and has become so certainly in the last couple of decades.
Welcome to the Birch Legacies podcast. We are sharing stories celebrating the motivation, the perseverance, and the lifestyle choices necessary to reach the status of Birchlegger. That is, skiers who have completed 20 or more Birkies, Korteloppets, or a combination of both. We would love to hear from Birchleggers young and old who have a story to tell about what keeps them coming back year after year. Information about appearing on this podcast is in the podcast notes. Hi, folks. Welcome back to Birch Legacies, a podcast for the Birchleggers and the many stories of the Birkie Trail. And when I first conceived of this idea of having this podcast, one of the first people I wanted to talk to is the guy who got me into this thing. And I have with me my friend, Gary Gerst. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you very much.
Let's just start from the beginning, Gary. How many Birkies have you done?
I have done 44, and hopefully in 2 weeks, it'll be number 45.
That's great. And I believe you are going to start on the front line with the Spirit of 35 folks with a 35 wave bib.
My first year in the Spirit of 35 wave, correct.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's get a little background about you. Kind of where do you live and what have you done with your life? In other words, your career and other things like that.
I live in St. Paul. I actually grew up in St. Paul and then moved out. I taught in the Osseo School District for 33 years, lived in Maple Grove, but now I've moved back to St. Paul. I was a biology teacher and a ski coach, cross-country running coach, and a track coach.
Yeah, that's good. So you, in fact, because we're friends, I often would talk to you as recently as yesterday about, well, what should we do these last 2 weeks? So I'm glad for your advice on those areas because you have that expertise. What was your background as a youngster? What kind of sports did you enjoy? And eventually led to making skiing part of your life.
As a very young, I live near Langford Park in St. Anthony Park. And so I participated in lots of stuff. I wasn't real good at many things. When I announced to my dad I wanted to play hockey, he said, yeah, go ahead. You need to walk down there. It was about a mile away because I can't give you a ride. And here's some magazines to put on your shins because we're not going to buy you shin guards. I kind of got the idea he didn't want me to play hockey. But then in high school, I was a swimmer, did that high school and for a year in college, and finally kind of got waterlogged. And that's kind of where skiing started to pick up.
Okay. And so how did you end up, you just started skiing on your own, or was the Birkie your first experience?
The Birkie was my first experience. I had two friends from high school, and also they were college friends that did. I believe it was the second, but if it wasn't the third, it was the third Birkie. And they came to me and said, you got to do this with us. And I had never skied before, but I ended up buying a pair of wood skis and I trained sort of. I think the longest ski I had done was 8 kilometers up on the University of Minnesota golf course. And then I entered my first Birkie.
Wow. that is a trust in your friends or else stupidity. I'm not sure which it turned out
I
to
think
be.
Part of it too is I did want to look like those guys. They had their girlfriends had made them wool knickers with nice long socks and matching colored. I thought, ooh, this is cool. I'll give it a try.
That was the look for sure. For sure. That's awesome. So which Birkie was your first one then? What do you remember? Do you know what year it was?
You and I have talked about this before. I'm so bad with dates. I honestly, when I was a Birkie warrior with my brother in the mid 2000s, and Sherry Morgan asked me, and I said, I don't even remember how many Birkies I've done. I just did them every year. I didn't really keep count. She looked it up. It's either 76 or 77. I honestly can't remember. I know I could look it up somewhere on the Birkie history stuff, but I honestly can't remember personally.
Well, I can help out a little bit because you got me into it in 1979, and I think that was your third at the time.
Okay, so 76 then. Huh?
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah, because I caught up to you just because there were a couple years when you weren't able to do it, but we're at the same number. So let's talk about that first Birkie. It's a memorable one for everyone, and I'm sure everyone listening has memories and stories to tell from the first one. Talk about that very first Birkie and what you remember about that.
What I remember about it was as a kid, my dad had taken my brother and I up to go downhill skiing at Telmark's Hills in the early days. And we skied down those hills. That first Birkie, we were down at the base looking up that hill. And I thought, what am I doing? I'm skiing up Valhalla and crossing over to Morgadal on that steep part at the top. And I knew that Stormone was down the backside, and I was going to be taking my wood skis down the backside. So that my first thought was, I don't know what I got myself into. But the other memories of that first Birkie were not knowing how to dress. I literally skied my first Birkie with a yellow cotton turtleneck and a cotton running suit.
There you go. You didn't have a girlfriend to sew you a nice pair of knickers, huh?
No, I didn't get a pair of knickers till a year later. Fortunately, somebody did take care of me after that. But
that's good.
Yeah, I was soaked all the way through. And then when I got, within probably 4 or 5 miles of Hayward, I was just shot. I was just done. But an older, and I say older, he's probably about my age now. I'll be 71 coming up here in not too many weeks. Gentleman that was ahead of me from Norway looked at me and said, "You need help." I just looked at him kind of blankly, and he said, "Yes, you do." He said, "Get behind me and follow me." And I did, and I followed him in. A couple times I was fading, and he waited for me. Got me across the finish line there at the Lumberjack Bowl, and his wife was waiting for him there with a thermos with soup in it. And he just waved her over and she said, "He needs this." And so they poured me a cup of soup and kind of started getting me revived.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, those Norwegians, they're pretty special people. That's awesome. Well, that's cool. That's a great memory. So do you happen to remember your time on that one?
I honestly don't. I know I've looked it up once or twice, but I honestly can't remember what my time was. And that's one of the things that the older I've gotten, I used to be real conscious of my times. Was I faster than last year and that kind of thing? Of course, then when skating came in, that became, well, you got a skate time and you got a classic time. But as I've gotten older, it's more to me about, I got to make sure I can do this and I can finish it. I'm hours slower than my fastest time when I was younger. I know that, but can't remember the exact time of my first one.
That's okay. I mean, that's part of the story, isn't it? It's like some of those things are important, some others aren't. One of the things is I've been reflecting about these podcasts that are coming up here that we plan to do. I think one of the stories will certainly be the transitions, the times that as we do this and as, we reach the Birchlegger status and beyond, there's different expectations for different years and different stages. I mean, you and I have both done 44, and we are certainly looking at it differently today than we were then. And I'm sure listeners will, can relate to that fact that, sometimes they're just going for it. And some of you listening are thinking, okay, this is going to be my fastest one ever, or I'm going to be elite wave, or, I'm going to move up 1 or 2 waves, or I'm going to fall down 2 waves. But we have to keep that in mind that it just changes all the time. So not to be too worried about it.
That's so true. In that I definitely remember years when I was a particular number I was shooting for. Birkie Day was the big thing. As I've gotten older, the old saying, the journey is more important than the end point. I definitely appreciate the journey, the training, the camaraderie. Yeah, Birkie Day there's a lot of excitement and a lot of focus. It's a big deal, but the journey is a bigger thing for me now, and has become so certainly in the last couple of decades.
Oh, that's interesting. So let's go through a couple of your most memorable. With so many Birkies under your belt, what were some of the memorable Birkies, the things you remember from particular times, even if you don't know the year, which I would have a hard time remembering myself?
I guess the ones that there's both memorable, good and not so good. One of those earlier, once I got off the wooden skis and I got a pair of Fisher RCSs, we're still classicing. And we had a year in there. It was somewhere in the first 10 years of my Birkie, where it was just a hard ice track. It was a blue Clister day, and I had just what you needed. I had kick, I had glide, and when I think back to that one, I thought that was just everything fell into place that day. The wax was right, the conditions were right. I was fast.
You probably had knickers.
I did. And it was legitimately fast. I think I'll maybe allude to something later where I thought I was fast, but I really wasn't very fast. I guess that would be the second one that I think of in a mistake. I fell into the kind of silly thinking that I need something more to make myself faster. And I'd heard people talk about, oh yeah, you got to have this drink that has lots of caffeine and stuff. And somebody told me about making a concoction with, you open a can of Coca-Cola the night before and let it defizz, and then you put that in with a cup of coffee, and then you grind down 3 no-dos and put those in there. And I think I might have even mixed in a little Gatorade and put it in my water bottle and put it on my fanny pack. And I thought, this is going to be the thing that gets me really over the top. I never touched it for 40 Ks. And then somewhere around the 10 Ks or so to go, I thought, hey, I haven't used that. And I took a couple big gulps of that while I was swallow skiing, thinking, yeah, this is the magic. And for a K or so, I didn't really notice much. And then all of a sudden, I just had tunnel vision. It was just, and I thought, oh my gosh, I am really fast. And I was thinking, this is going to be the one that gives me my best time ever. And as it turned out, I kept looking around and everybody was passing me, even though I thought I was fast. When I got on the lake, everyone was going by me. And then I realized I'm not going as fast as I thought I was. Anyway, yeah, that was, I did not get my best time that year. And I've never done any of the funky odds and ends things I hear people talk about since that time. I just thought, yeah, that was really stupid.
Well, you think about it, we grasp for straws for, what is it that we can do that's going to be different other than actually train harder and and work harder.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. And then even then, when you do all of those things, sometimes there's a curveball. It could be a weird weather, bad snow. So even though you prepare and you hope to have your best time and stuff ever, there's things that you can't control. And you learn over time that it's okay. That's where that whole journey part comes in. You and I talked the other day. We started skiing at -1. I thought, oh, this is going to be miserable out there. Both of us agreed when we were done with over 20 Ks that this is one of the best skis, if not the best ski of the year.
Yeah. I mean, so much of it is the mental state you're in when you're training and dragging yourself, out in the morning if it's dark and you're using headlamps. But a day like that day you're describing, bright sun, fresh snow, great tracks, and we're on the Birkie Trail. It's hard to get better than that. So,
You bet.
Speaking of the Birkie Trail, some of the traditions, like that famous hill, shall we say, the Bee Hill. What do you remember about that one?
I understand they're moving off of the original name. I have great memories of that. I know there's a lot of people talk about, oh God, I hate that hill. But for me, I always enjoyed as I was getting closer, I knew that either the guy that was dressed as a pastor or the nuns or the people dressed as bees were going to be there. Every time I could, I'd pull over and get a Bee Hill pin because I've kept a number of those. It was an upper for me, not a downer. And so I look forward to that. And I think that's one of the things about the race, that whether it's the bands that are playing on the side or the drummers along the power line or the people out on the lake that are cheering you in, those are all really good memories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all things that you look forward to while you're skiing, and also the months between the skis. You are thinking about those things as great memories. What kind of stuff have you done typically? What's a typical physical training, mental preparation? What are the things that you do so that you are ready to finish in Hayward or wherever each year?
Well, I ski more than an 8K before the race every
Yeah.
year.
Nowadays, that's a good thing. Yeah.
I've learned that's a wise thing to do. The last 2 years have been tough with the lack of snow. So there's been a lot of skiing on man-made snow, and I'm hoping that's a temporary thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because of that, you're doing loops, hopefully at least out at 5Ks or 6K loops when you're training. But the thing I miss when I'm doing that, I will get some 20K, or I got a 30 some K in this year. But the thing I miss is being on the Birkie Trail,
Mm-hmm.
going through the woods, and I know all those kind of spots that people talk about. I look forward to hitting those. Whereas going round and round, you can train, and you can certainly get good training in doing that. But the mental kind of upper part that gives me the positive feelings is something that I don't get when I'm on a loop versus on the Birkie Trail.
Yeah, and I think that's, for the folks listening, the aspiring Birchleggers and others, so much of skiing for both of us has always been the endorphins, the feeling we get just being out in the woods and sharing that experience with nature and with each other and with good friends. And so for those listening, it's the idea that I get it. A lot of you are just training because you want to be really fast, but hopefully by the time you get to Birchlegger and beyond, you are doing it because you just enjoy doing it and being out there, no matter how fast you are.
Yeah, and that's something that I think you and I have talked about. For me, in my case, I used to love speed. I used to love the downhills and just going as fast as I could, and I could pass a bunch of people and everything. That was kind of in my wheelhouse. Now that I'm in my 70s, not so much. I'm a little more cautious. A couple of years ago, I tore one of my hamstrings off the bone on a nasty fall. And so now, I guess to some of the younger folks, the fact, we're going to be out there with the Spirit of 35 wave. I certainly am not doing anything to impede your progress on purpose. I know you want to go fast, and I applaud you for that. But as you get older, just know that some of us are going to be a little cautious on this big downhill.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So, talk music. What do you have some traditional music or routines that you do the morning of things the night before, you're carbo loading? Are you, or, maybe that's changed. Talk a little bit about some of those kind of routines.
Unfortunately, I think I carbo load pretty much year round now. That's not good. But we've always, tuned into OJB and whether it's Birkie Fever or oh gosh, the whole list of songs. We're always playing those. My brother Tom brought something back from Austria, I believe.
Yeah, Austria.
He would play this CD from Hubert von Goisen with I don't know, I don't think you'd call it yodeling, but it was some sort of screaming out in the mountains, and that was become the morning wake up music when we were getting up in the morning.
I'll link that in the podcast notes because I've used it a lot, and because I was connected with your brother there too. And it's hard to describe, but like you said, yodeling is part of it. So is like heavy metal rock. And so if you're listening, go look at the podcast notes and we'll put the link there. And imagine tuning that in,
in the morning
as you're getting up to get ready for the thing. It is cool. I've actually played it in the car on the drive up too. So from the cabin to the start or the busing area. So it's inspirational in some weird way. So what else, over the years, how have you gotten to the Birkie? Where do you stay and some of those things?
Early on, those first, oh gosh, I can't remember how many, up until 95, my grandfather had a little fishing cabin just south of Cable, where the Wayside Rest is on 63, all of about 450 square feet. And so we would stay there. It didn't have running water. We had a pump. Imagine 450 square feet, about 8 people in there, and everybody's trying to wax. it was sometimes pretty busy in that little place.
Yeah.
But since then, after that, when they lost that to the Wild River Act, we stayed at my brother, who was on the Yellow River outside of Spooner. And then now the last 2 years, I have got a cabin I had built up near Stone Lake. And so that's where I go when I can train on the Birkie Trail, and I stay there before the Birkie every year now and plan on doing that in the future.
Yeah, it's we were both teachers, and we couldn't get Fridays off, and so I remember, talk through a little of that, the kind of the routine on Friday night before the Birkie.
Oh, well, depending upon when we were teaching in junior high or senior high, that depending on what time we got out of school at the end of the day.
And this is in the cities.
Yeah, we lived up in the Brooklyn Park area, and it was hopefully have everything ready in the car so that when school's over and your time's up, you hop in the car and you start heading up. So yeah, we would get up there in the dark. Sometimes if the weather changed, you had to change some waxing, and that's where, like I say, it got busy in the cabin. But I did have one, I don't know what the deal was. For some reason, I took a ride from a college friend, and he said, I'll drive. And that was one of my poorer decisions of pre-Birkie in my life. He had a Volkswagen Squareback that was, I don't know how old, but it was really old, had holes in the floor. And so we would stop every 20 miles and put a quart of oil in because he was burning so much oil. And I realized I'm sucking this in and breathing this all the way up there. That was the one Birkie where I was throwing up a lot. Didn't go over real well.
But you got it done. So let's, I think one of the things I'd like to archive in these podcast episodes is just kind of a reflections. What has the Birkie experience meant to you? I mean, starting with your friends challenging you and never having really skied before to today. How has the Birkie experience affected you? What has it meant to you? And what might it be something for others to relate to?
I guess I'll start at the beginning. I remember when I finished and that Norwegian fellow's wife gave me that soup. My sister had given me a ride up there, and Kate came over and said, "Are you all right?" And I kind of looked at her funny, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'll never do that again." And she's reminded me of that multiple times since then. But it was one of those things where in the moment, it's like, my God, that was just hard, so hard. But I did it again and again and again. And now this will be 45 this year. It's one of those things that just kind of grabs hold of you. And you realize, I don't want to shake this loose. I like this. It becomes part of who you are, even in the middle of the summer. When I was younger, I was roller skiing and things like that. I don't do that anymore. I had to have a screw put in my shoulder after a fall on my roller skis. But it becomes something that you actually think about year round. And even now, when I'm not training like I used to do, it still is with colleagues or friends. So what do you think of this year's Birkie? Do you think they're going to do this or this or this? It becomes part of your talk. It becomes part of your DNA.
Yeah, and you kind of are, keeping yourself honest. It's like, well, boy, I better keep doing something all summer, otherwise I won't be ready to finish. I won't finish in the Birkie because I've let myself go or whatever. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and a lot of that to me is the models that we've had in front of us, and we see what they do or have done. Names like Duncan McLean and Dave Landgraf and Dave Balsinger, and of course Ernie St. Germain, Mitch Mode. These are people that you watch do this and do it extremely well over many, many years, and you go, well, they can do it. I can do that.
Maybe not as fast.
Yeah. Oh, definitely not as fast.
So let's kind of wrap it up with, we're not really, this podcast isn't going to be about giving advice and a how-to thing, but any kind of philosophical thoughts for those that are working on adding more Birkies to their list?
I guess the thing that I would say to somebody that's either new or has done a few, I would say, don't let the mental game of, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And you can. If you've done it once, twice, if you've done it 6 times, you can do it. You can keep doing it. And there's a ton of good reasons to keep doing it. Physical health, mental health. It's just being outdoors. It's a great sport. And so, worry less about the numbers and the time and just get out there.
Good. Well, just get out there. That's great advice. Well, thanks, Gary. I want to thank you so much. We've been talking about this a little bit in advance, and I look forward to capturing some of this. There are many more stories to tell, and all of them are perfectly good for the general public to hear. But in general, we've had a great time together over the years, and I'm really glad that you could be one of the first guests on this podcast. If you're listening to this and you want to be part of the stories, you want to share your stories, go to the podcast notes, and there's a link there to a form. Just fill out the form, lets me know who you are and what you want to talk about a little bit. And we'll have you on this as soon as we can. We'd love to get a few more of these in the can before the Birkie 2025. And they're generally evergreen. So in other words, anytime you listen to this, hopefully they'll have some meaning to you, and you can share your stories to other people as well. So thanks again, Gary, for being here.
Thank you, John. It was fun.
All right. Awesome. Thanks for listening. Please check out the podcast notes to see links to the Birch Leggings Club and the Birkie website. If you've skied a combination of 20 Birkies and or Korties, I encourage you to join the Birch Leggings Club. If you'd like to tell your Birkie story, please contact me, John Peterson, at my email listed in the podcast notes or by filling out the guest application form linked there. Please subscribe to our program wherever you get your podcasts and leave a review. You can also text us directly from your phone or computer using the quick link in the notes to let us know how we are doing.